grew up in Argentina, and since a child I have lived in different countries and continents also. Yeah, you can put the. Today I am the correspondent of these Spanish newspapers, El Periódico, and I also work for the French television France 24. And occasionally also I collaborate with other media such as National Geographic. Anyway, on my bio, as I told you, you can ask any questions you would like. Today, in fact, I've been asked to speak to you, explain to you how we correspondent. I'm a correspondent in Italy and the Balkans, and I am also sent to conflict areas and other, problematic areas around the globe. So I've been asked to explain to you how we pick stories, how we choose news. So this is, well, I think we can switch. I wanted to just to see this image because I guess you know what it is. Do you know what it is? It's the migrant detention center of Italy in Albania. Okay, so we will come back to this after. Maybe it's not working the video, right? Just to check if the video is working. So you can just see it a little bit more, but I guess, yeah. Anyway, just to, perfect, it's working. We will come back later. Okay. So, oh, yeah. So, in short, how we correspondent, we pick up news. There is not a single answer. It's a mix of rules, journalist rules that you learn at university, that you learn through experience, and also, of course, a little bit of journalistic intuitions. Even though there are some pillars that you can follow, that we follow when we of course cover news. And maybe the most basic, it's the international relevance. And here in Italy, we had this year this very big breaking news. I think it's, actually, we can say it's the breaking news of the year in this country, and it was the death of Pope Francis and the conclave. Why we media, especially the ones that are from Catholic countries, cover this news? I think it's kind of obvious to you, right? We are interested in Pope Francis because we have a large population that is Catholic. Why the others are interested in Pope Francis? Because the Vatican is also a geopolitical figure and a geopolitical actor that has some kind of influence, not always, but it has, because the Catholic Church is everywhere in all the world, and the Church often also it's a diplomatic actor that can have and has had in the past mediation roles also. And there are several examples that you can search also in the internet, in Africa and in other countries in Latin America, where the Catholic Church has had some kind of role in mediating between countries or guerrillas or groups that were fighting. So that's something that, of course, we have to take into consideration. Of course, it's interesting also for Islamic countries because the Vatican has relations, has ecumenical relations with almost all the religions. With some, the relations are better, with some others, they are worse, or they just keep distance. But in any case, as I said, it has this it has this importance. So, well, I guess you got it. This is me. I just took this not to be egocentric. I just pick up this picture to show you how we journalists were covering it. I mean, this is of course, and there I'm working as a TV journalist, so it's not the same for the press. Of course, there are differences. If I would have worked, what if I would have been working for the press in that moment, I would be hadn't been there actually. We, of course, in television, image is very important, and that's why France hired actually this roof for us to be connected for hours and hours and hours lives, with also special guests and people that were talking to us. And on the other side, I don't know if you can see them, those are the journalists, the photographers especially, that were taking pictures from that side. You can see it very well, but they look like a little ants actually, because there were a lot of them all over the roof. And that's what we did. I mean, it was our everyday job for almost 2 months. I mean, to be in this area, covering, interviewing cardinals, interviewing political leaders also that they came for the funeral and then for the election of Leo. So now this is just it's what I was saying to you, the international relevance. You have some examples. These are the three media as I mentioned you before. I choose the one, also the one of or National Geographic, because it was a column that they gave me. I've been covering the Vatican for a long time, so even if I'm not covering always only the Vatican, so National Geographic actually proposed to me to write something different, looking at details, looking at what was not obvious. So I was completely free to write something, and this is one of the columns I wrote. I wrote it because even if it's kind of obvious, it was very striking to see that women were not even participating in meetings, not in the final elections. We have in the Vatican a woman that is a top officer, and she was not invited even in the meetings regarding the economical situation of the Vatican. And that for me was something to be remembered. And so that's what it's, if you search these articles, these columns, they're quite ironic also. And yeah, and these two, well, that's the article we wrote, we had prepared in advance actually, and we published the day that Francis died. And that's me on video again on the day of the funeral. Going to the second thing, the second rule we follow. Why we are interested in what Meloni says to Trump, or why we are interested on what why Musk is smiling at Meloni or Salvini is smiling at Le Pen. Why me, as a journalist that works for medias from, well, an international media from France and media from Spain, I write about these situations. I write it because I read about this situation because what happens between Trump and Meloni does not affect only Italy. Because Italy, it's an European country, a country of the European Union. So the relation between Meloni and Trump, it's something that also has consequences in the other European countries. And that's another rule that we follow. And the same, of course, Salvini and Le Pen. If we have a rise of the extreme right, and we have this kind of alliance, we of course are interested in it because we want to understand, and plus the extreme right is very fragmented too. So, for example, Le Pen and Salvini have a very good relation, but Le Pen and Meloni don't have such good relation as they. So it's interesting also to see this kind of equilibrium because afterwards they are also in the European Parliament, they are negotiating, they are promoting the same law, they are doing a position on laws that affect us all. And that's why it's interesting for us, and that's why we cover it and we write about it, of course. Third rule. I'm going quick back because I want you to ask me a lot of questions. Third rule. The third rule is proximity. Of course, again, you have to remember that I work for international and European medias. It would be very different, this talk, if I would be a correspondent of an Arab television or an Asian television, of course. But in the case of my media, what we are interested to, it's phenomena that are happening in Italy, but also are similar in the countries of our audience. So, for example, here, maybe I have, this is, well, no, I wanted to let you, yeah. This is more on what I just talked. Geographical proximity here. So, in the case of Spain, for example, it's very easy to see it. For example, this article, I wrote it this week, actually. And why did I wrote it? I hope you understand a little bit of Spanish. It's on depleted uranium and the claims that depleted uranium causes cancers on soldiers. Why I wrote this article in a Spanish newspaper? Why do you think so? Because there are cases in Spain also. So what this court is saying is that there is a relation, and we have a debate over this issue. So in a lot of European countries, I don't know if you know much about this story, but a lot of European countries have denied this for a long time. The consequences of soldiers working in missions where munitions of depleted uranium were used. So the fact that in Italy, a very important court is saying this is true, this is not some fake news or some rumors, it's significant for any other European country. And that's the reason why I wrote this article. I mean, of course, it's an important news for Italy too. It's not only that. I mean, it's something that for sure affected soldiers in Spain and in other countries. Will be very interesting, also politicians, for sure. And of course, there is also the fact that these munitions are still used. They were sent to Ukraine by Washington just 2 years ago. And the United States claim that they are not dangerous for the health. The microphone is working well, right? You hear me? Okay. The same with the other two news. This is the protection of the privacy authority saying that the facial the facial, how you say this in English? The facial, my first language is Spanish, by the way. It's the facial recognition in the airport of Milano. It has problems Do you think that they are using this kind of technology only in Italy? No, they are using it in all Europe. So again, an authority from Italy is saying that it has analyzed something that also other European countries are using, and it finds problems with it. And here, the third example, this is something different. I was asked actually to participate in this article. I guess you know that there are some European that are saying that they will not participate in a revision if Israel is there. And what we were asked by our editors, all the European correspondent, was to write on what's going on in our countries where we work. This is something we do very often. Because again, each European countries look at the other one and are interested. We are in Europe, we are a similar society, very similar. We tend to think that we are different, but also because we, I don't know, we sometimes we look at our belly, you know, but we have very similar problems and we have very similar society. And but we don't have similar governments often, even if they have to negotiate. And so this is a type of article we do very often. I mean, it's something that, especially in Spain, it's very used in press. We did it this time for Eurovision, but we do it, I mean, twice a month for different kind of subject. So these are, of course, all this, it's combined with also the personal interest in the specialization of the journalist. In my case, for example, of course, I'm specialized in international politics, but I have also cultivated some other areas of work, especially human rights, conflicts, and migration. So generally, I tend to search stories related with this issue. This afternoon, for example, I'm shooting a positive story about refugees. That it's interesting because in this situation, I mean, we live in the latest year in a very hard world, and it's interesting because it's a positive example of a very good integration, using the abilities that migrants and refugees have, and making jobs from that. Jobs that will be maybe even for Italians and others. And so, and then there's maybe one last category that that is also a way that we sometimes pick up news. Well, of course, we follow general rules. I mean, we write about the man that bites the dog and on that it's the man. I mean, because that's not a news. I mean, so we write about new things, new phenomena. At the time, for example, we were very interested in Italy in the five-star movement when it was new. Today, we are not interested at all because it's irrelevant in Italy. I mean, yeah, well, it has a little voice, but it's not what it was. And it was interesting because that movement came up in a context of protest of people claiming against the old politics, the traditional politics. And And that's why we of course were very interested at the time in Beppe Grillo. I guess you're young, but you remember him. I mean, he's an actor, and he became one of the leaders, one of the top leaders of this very strange party that at the beginning we didn't understand. We we didn't understand what they were, so we were interested in understand what they wanted, because again, Italy, and you have a very good chance to be Italians. It's a very important country in the European Union. It's one of the countries that's founded the European Union, and it's one of the biggest economy. So what happens in Italy, as what happens in France and Germany and in Spain, it has a value that's often very important for all the countries, all the 27. And new phenomena can be anything. I mean, I was talking about politics, but as I told you, we are, and I guess you also saw by the example that I show you, we are not writing always only about politics. In these cases, it's politics, but it's something else also. It's society, it's judiciary, and it's in this case, culture. So some questions that I guess I don't ask myself anymore, but because I'm old. But if you wish to, to pursue this profession, that you should ask yourself, if someday you become a correspondent, is, of course, does this story cross borders? It affects somehow the balance of powers. And how much this story matter to the people who read or hear or see the news I'm reporting? Which is the narrative also frame I wish to use to write about these stories? These questions are, kind of tricks that when you are very young help you to put into focus what to choose and what not to choose. We as correspondent, each, we work methodically. We work each week with, schedules. We try to also, in our agenda, we try to predict also the news that will come out. Each day we do it again. But we work also a lot on breaking news. So these questions that I were telling to you actually are questions that we ask ourselves each time while we're working. So any question by now? Because I really would like to have a question. We have a microphone?
Hi, I'm Francesca. First of all, thank you for your speech. I wanted to ask two questions. The first one is about the conclave. Do you think that having the possibility of being behind the scenes and being a reporter in the period, there were some fake news coming around during the period? And also the second question is about this one. So about the soldiers and cancer. I wanted to ask how the governments are coping this, because of course, if these people are getting this bad disease, they have to go under chemotherapy. So they have to go under treatments and long period of suffer. How the governments are coping with all these situations? Thank you.
So the first thing, and I appreciate very much the question. And actually, I even forgot to mention, so you're helping me. Of course, we live in a very in a world of post information, where there are a lot and a lot of manipulated news, and this happens every day. I don't know if we should maybe find some other word, because news, it's not maybe the most appropriate. There are a lot of stories that go around, and then you, especially you, I guess you too, I mean, because you are very young, you find in the social media, and also in the social messaging groups as Telegram and others. So the conclave was no exception of this, okay? But this happens every day, and actually for the future, what I hope that you will be able to do, what doesn't matter what you will do, is to be able to understand when a news it's fake and when it isn't, and how will you be it's understanding the source. Okay, if you become a diplomat or a journalist, it doesn't matter, you will have to do it this. You have to understand how to understand if a news is fake or good, because I mean this will be important for your process of decision making. And it sounds obvious now that I'm telling, but I've seen very experienced people taking fake news as real news. So one trick is always check the source and trust source, okay? And if I think the microphone is not working very well, but you hear me?
I think you have to speak like
Oh, now maybe this one. So this is, and if you can, read newspapers. Because if something breaks at home, you call a specialized person to repair it. The job of journalists is to study and work on news. We're not in the jungle, and we follow rules. And that's why, I mean, of course, there are bad and good journalists, but you have, we are specialized in that, and so newspaper should be, I mean, taken into, I mean, we should undergo even of a process of rehabilitation of newspapers, I think, because they're very important for democracy. Second question was on the Iranian. It's a very controversial issue. It's more than 20 years that we're discussing this. The United States recognized the use of depleted uranium in the first Gulf War. Then also NATO used it in the Balkans. In Italy especially, the civil society, the labor associations, and also the soldiers affected, they were fighting for a long time. I think it's the European countries actually were more, I mean, the fight was more public and open. In other countries, for example, Spain, it's not so on the public debate. And regarding the governments, I mean, they have, it depends. I mean, some of them, they have denied for a long time. Some, they try just to keep it silent. And the fact, I don't know, what it shows here, it's that the judiciary in this country also works freely. very freely, because the pressure not to recognize this is very big. And the judiciary in Italy, they just, I mean, kept giving, I mean, they just kept investigating, analyzing this issue, and finally they arrived to this conclusion. And I mean, the other European countries, they will have to take it into consideration, that's for sure. I mean, I mean, there was not a big debate. There are a lot of news going on these days in the world, but this is something that it's probably even bigger than we know. Happy to see so many hands.
Hello, my name is Valeria Maccia, and my question was, in democratic countries as the European ones, do we face a significant level of censorship? And even if there is a significant level, do news still face a sort of filtration, and by what criteria? Thank you.
So this is interesting also, because the other day I looked at how many people lives in democracy around the globe. Have you an idea how many people lives in democracy around the world? According to this Swedish organization, I was checking, just 12% of world population today lives in a full democracy, and you are living in one of these democracies. So this is something. First of all, democracies are not all the same. Okay, so of course the big division is between democracy and autocracies, and democracies now are lesser than autocracies. In democracies, depending on democracy, there are still very strong medias, and there are, always pressures, but I wouldn't say censorship. Okay, in full democracy. Of course, again, it depends on the country. It depends also on the argument, of course. The correspondent generally are the ones who suffer less, because they write about stories about other countries. The most sensitive is people who not write about national politics. Okay, so for example, Italians that write about Italian politics, they are the ones who suffer the biggest pressures. Still, I wouldn't say that they are censored. But censorship, I don't know if it's what you imagine, because since today, as I was kind of introducing, I mean, the problem is that it's that media today and journalists are less and less followed by people, because people do not anymore understand the importance of the media. They don't understand the democratic importance of media. They tend to think that they can pick up news on social media very easily and be informed anyway. And this is clearly not true. There is not such thing as citizen journalism. I know that some of my colleagues disagree with this, but I really, I think that everything started from there, making people believe that they could be journalists. Well, it's not that. It's people who have not studied, who have not worked as journalists. They can only be sources. So what, anyway, I started another argument just to tell you what happens in some countries. For example, now as I told you, I work also in the Balkans. Not all the Balkan countries are in the European Union, but all of them are candidate members. And I've been working a lot in Serbia lately. So what happens in Serbia? Serbia, it's not a dictatorship, but it's not a democracy. And what happens to journalism over there? It happens that journalists have very little resources to do their work. So when there is this, inequality, it's much harder for journalists to do properly his job. So that's censorship somehow too. I answered all your question?
The news, if a journalist can freely work without limitations, but still some news are preferred to other ones. Maybe if there are some topics that are avoided in a sense.
But it depends if you are a freelance journalist or if you are a staff journalist. In my case, for example, for El Periódico, I work as a staff. So we have a hierarchical organization. We have a director and then the chief editors, and that's, the chain. If you are freelance, you are free to propose, but of course, media have to buy.
I'm Pietro. My question is, for a journalist, is it more important to be the fastest to give a news or the quality of the news?
And it's easy. I mean, of course, we want to. I mean, I work a lot with the French journalism, and I've been told that the quality is always the most important. I mean, we have to run today and more. I mean, and each day. And in the past, it wasn't like this. Our veterans, they maybe, they went on war and they read one article per week. Now you go on war and you have to work all day and maybe sleep 2 hours and then keep working. But still, I mean, quality is so important. So yeah, I would say quality.
Hello, thank you for your speech. I wanted to ask if you can give us like some advices for the people that want to start this kind of career, and also if you could talk about the bad sides of actually starting this career too. Thank you.
First, be prepared to be not well paid. But I mean, it's something that it's discouraging people to study journalism, and I completely understand it. I mean, look, this is a very good job, okay, on one side, and it's a very bad job on the other. For sure, it's especially when you start, it's very unstable, and it depends on the country. In Italy, it's quite complicated, as I've been told, to become a journalist and be able to maintain yourself, because I mean, I know that, and this is something also that I take this occasion to tell you, you don't have to accept never that they don't pay you for your work. Never. This is bad for you and for the others. Of course, you can start with a stage, a stage. That's a good idea. I mean, it's something that I would advise you. If you speak languages, why not try with an international agency or an international TV or international media in Italy or in another country, of course. But when you start working, do not believe never when they ask you to, they ask you for a period of, I mean, you have not to work for free. Never. That's something that I would like to tell you. And regarding, and another thing is that study a lot. Prepare yourself. In international politics, for sure, if you want to be an international reporter. In economy, if you want to be a reporter that is working on economy. in, I don't know, literature and arts, if you want to write about culture. And keep studying all your life. That's something else that I still study when I can, when I can, of course. And I have studied, I mean, I got a master in international law that I got it 10 years ago. And that's 10 years, more than 10 years after I started to work as a journalist. So, but the list is very long. I mean, maybe if you want, you can write me and we can have a little chat on this.
Hello, thank you for being here today. I'm Yunus. I'm from Turkey, and I'm a global governance student here in Rome. I have two questions, but I'll keep it really short. One of them were related to your experience working in this field, because the financing of what you're doing is really important, and it can have an effect on what you're trying to produce. So have you ever felt anything specific in your career where profitability was going beyond the areas that you would actually want to focus in? And my other question is, El Periódico was criticized for shifting more towards giving space for more skeptical ideas. So just your stance on what do you think for the ideas outside of what we're focusing, to give them space for debating until where they can replace your agenda and they can look like you're purposely keeping them alive, because what you talk about will also get profit and the crowd and the threshold from the product you're putting in the end of the day. So what do you think about the line between giving them space to exist and giving them space to debate? So, thank you.
Thank you for your question. One of my best friends is from Turkey, so, and I know your country. I worked covering Erdogan's elections in the past. Well, Turkish election that elected Erdogan, actually, that was inappropriate. I'm not sure I got your first question very well. In any case, what I wanted to tell you is that we don't have an agenda as journalists. And as correspondent and not opinionist, because we are not opinionists. I mean, there are a lot of different types of journalists. And there are journalists that are dedicated, they dedicated their job to, you know, to create this debate. My goal is not to create a debate. My goal is to inform in an objective way as much as I can. As much as I can, I underline this, because of course we all have bias and it's impossible to erase completely, even if we try hard and we follow rules and we question ourselves. So, I mean, it really depends on which type of journalist you are. If you do not do opinion, you are not supposed to, you know, to give, to write your personal thought about something. So, and actually something that I almost never do. Maybe in the columns of National Geographic a bit, but that's because it was a column. It's another, you know, piece of article. And it's a freer one where we generate debate. But that's not my everyday work. My everyday work as a correspondent, as a reporter, is just to inform on facts or investigate facts if I'm doing a piece of investigative journalism. I hope I replied.
Hi, I'm Giorgio from Italy. You say you grew up in Argentina. So as an Argentinian, I don't know, what's your view on the political situation right now? maybe regarding the freedom of press, like, is it better, the worsened under the new presidency? Thank you.
I would say shortly, I'm not following the political situation in Argentina. I prefer not to. Of course, I have family there. I have friends there, especially not family. My family is in Spain now. And the situation is very complex. The rates of poverty have raised a lot. Argentina is a very rich country. It should not be in this situation. Sadly, we don't have a very good political class over there on every side. And it's very frustrating. It's very sad, I would say, for such a rich country that during the Second World War was, feeding Europe and was really rich. And I think that it's not good, the situation.
Good morning. Thank you for your speech. I would like to ask you what role, according to your opinion, your idea, the ideological opinions and ideas of journalists have on their articles, on their journals and their pieces of article. And the second question is that if, in your opinion, the people can, in a sort of way, feel this ideological influence over the articles and in journals made by, for example, the journalists, and if this if this motivation can be, according to these people, a reason to search information in other sources instead of journalists or articles in journals, for example, in social media. I don't know if it's clear the concept.
I mean, you are asking me if my ideology affects what I write.
I'm asking you if the ideas and the opinions, political ideas and opinions of journalists affect their articles, not you in particular, but in general, and if this influence sometimes can be perceived and feel by the people, and if these people use this kind of reason to search information in other sources.
Well, this is the argument of, people who don't like journalism, that are generally autocrats or people who do not, believe in true and full democracy. Of course, we all have ideologies, but, and of course, it depends on the journalist, and of course, it depends on the media. So it's very hard to answer you. I just can speak for myself. I've been taught to question myself each time I write an article and ask that question to me precisely. Is my ideology affecting my point of view on this argument? I mean, of course, journalists are humanists, so it's difficult that it's zero, the answer. It's 0%. In a little part, maybe it does. But this is a reason for going to social media where people that are not journalists, but have interested in manipulating the opinion of people are. I mean, this is the question that society should ask to themselves. This here, maybe this girl, I saw her, yeah.
Hello, my name is Aslı and I'm from Turkey as well.
Okay.
And I recently volunteered this summer in northern Nigeria, rural Nigeria,
Wow.
with four of my peers here, actually. And I saw that people are generally there, mostly uneducated, and they are really disconnected from the world, from media and from the news that are happening in their country as well. And I wanted to ask, and they really rely on their town governors and their elders for political decisions. So I wanted to ask, how can it be made sure that reliable journalism can reach communities like these around the world when they are making political decisions? Radio.
Yes. I mean, in areas, not only in Africa, but also in Latin America, where they don't have, resources, they're very poor. The media that works the best, it's radio. And I mean, I remember also in Chiapas, for example, in various places, you had no newspaper, of course, and no access to internet. And the only way to be informed, of course, it was not possible always, because also radio can have, this, but was radio. So, and it's very interesting because it shows you, for example, in Europe, and maybe radio, it's the media that it's, we listen it in the cars while we are driving from one side, but we don't really get that. Actually, it's like a little brother that has to survive among television and press. But in other places, it's very important. By the way, this is just, as I told you, just to let you see that these are 3 articles, well, not just 2, but one is from Georgia, it's last year, the other one is Serbia. Oh, it's too high, maybe. I have a question for you. I don't know. Do you know about the protests in Serbia? I want but you're the only one who knows about no, I mean, you're the only one who knows about the protests in Serbia. Okay, that's good. Okay, yeah.
Hi, I'm Arianna. Thank you for your speech. I'm also from Italy. And I wanted to ask you, how do you think that the rise of social media has impacted your job? And by that, I mean not only in the selection of what news to prioritize and to report, but also writing style. We are facing like a generation that has shorter attention spans, and the reading comprehension is going down sort of worldwide. So I was wondering if you have that in mind when you write articles. Thank you.
Yes. The short answer is yes. I mean, of course, we know all, I mean, what you just said. I mean, that people have less attention. I mean, they pay less attention. They are, this is something that is going on from, I mean, several years already. And of course, it has affected us. We also do, we're still experimenting also on this issue, because and sometimes we include also social media in our articles, even though social media are still evolving too, because, for example, Twitter used to be a very good social media for journalism, but it's not anymore. And so we had to, leave it behind. And today the remaining ones, I mean, the panorama actually of social media, it's worse today, I would say also. So the remaining ones, I don't know, maybe they for sure are a lesser threat for well-informed people.
Hi, I'm Cecilia. Thank you for your speech. I had 2 questions. I wanted to ask you. Oh, sorry. I need to. Oh. I wanted to ask, what do you think about journalism sometimes replacing authority? In the sense, for example, when TV programs show journalists, I don't know, chasing pickpockets around the streets, or maybe chasing drug dealers, or going into.
That's entertainment. It's not
Okay.
journalism. I mean, it's entertainment. It's when, in some talk show, they mix, journalism and entertainment.
Mm.
But it's not,
It's not real journalism. Okay. And also, I wanted to ask you about your experiences in conflict zones and war zones, if you'd like to talk about it. And also maybe how it works in general, because if journalists are like protected, if they aren't, if sometimes they are, sometimes they are not, because even with the war in Gaza, we saw that journalists have actually been killed. And so if you'd like to share about it.
We need another hour to explain about, journalism. I worked a lot in Ukraine. The situation in Ukraine for journalists is very different from the situation in Gaza, because in Gaza, actually, the journalists that died are almost all Palestinians, because international journalists were not allowed by Israel to enter Gaza. So actually, international journalists were not really never in danger in covering this conflict, because they didn't cover, they weren't able to cover the conflict from the first line. While in Ukraine, we are on the first line. We can go to the first line. Of course, we are not obliged to go, but we can go. And regarding the question of protection, it depends a lot on the media you work for. France, it's very, we have a very strict protocols. It's very long here to explain all the protocols we follow. We have a chief of security. We need authorization from him each day. Before the trip and each day again. And of course, we have armor and helmet and whatever. And if we are in war zone, of course, if we are in Kiev, no. In Kiev, it's true that Kiev has been attacked, but it's not something that happens regularly. So, it depends, no? So, and yeah, but it's a very, very, and I will stop here because it's a very long reply that I should give you, and also it depends on this scenario. I don't know if I think about when I also covered partially the war in Syria, and it was, of course, very different over there. So it depends. Yeah, it depends a lot on where and on the conflict, the actors, and yeah. There is here this boy that's asking.
I am Luigi Alessandro from Italy, and I want to ask, and I think you may have covered with some of the questions, maybe the topic, but we live in a period where anti-intellectualism is on the rise, and people mistrust good sources, they mistrust scientists, they mistrust experts. And my question is, do you find your professional lives to be leaning more towards selling a product rather than informing and educating? So do you find then sometimes an economical point of view or the fear of not being feasible to the system has prevented you from being yourself professionally and expressing your opinions, your professional standpoints of view, and to prevent being banned in some way or to earn less in your job? Thank you.
Oh, no. I'm not I'm a journalist again. That's I'm not an intellectual, but it's no. I would say no. But it depends again on the media. If you, for example, in UK, you have these tabloid things. We don't have it, for example, in Spain. So we don't have to sell. We have to maybe be attractive, and of course. But look, journalists should talk in a very easy way, because you can be a very experienced journalist, very well, educated, but still you have to remember that the newspaper is for everybody. I mean, everybody means everybody, even the ones who are not educated. So maybe what my answer would be that the real challenge is to explain complex things always, but in an easy way. Not, I mean, avoid to explain complex thing, but always use easy language and easy, a way that everybody understands this, because that's also what makes important it for people to then participate in democracy. If you speak, very, it doesn't work. It's not for journalism. It's not the goal of journalism. I mean, not general journalism, at least. If you write to a very specialized magazine on culture or philosophy, of course, it's very different. But for a general reporter, or a common reporter, common correspondent, I would say that's my answer. There.
Good morning. Thank you for your speech. I'm Sofia, and I wanted to ask you your opinion on the fact that the International Criminal Court has accused of war crimes and crimes against humanities Giorgia Meloni, alongside with Prime Minister Crosetto and also Tajani and Cingolani. Thank you.
Okay, again, before I answered the question of Argentina, but I'm not a politician. I mean, my job is not to give opinions. I'm a journalist. I'm not a politician, and I'm not an activist. Actually, I always repeat that journalists should not be activists, even for good causes. So I'm sorry that if I would skip this one. I had to skip the Argentinian one too, but anyway, yeah.
Good morning. I'm Yann from France, and I wanted to know what is your point of view on the impact of artificial intelligence on the work of journalists, and if you consider it as a possible threat in your work. Thank you.
It's very hard to reply to this question now because we are not sure which are the capabilities of artificial intelligence. Of course, some people are very scared. My experience with the artificial intelligence is that artificial intelligence is not so intelligent. So it makes a lot of mistakes. And please, when you use it, remember this, that the artificial intelligence makes a lot of mistakes. And it's easy to prove. You can do several experiments, and you will find that if sometimes they don't know the answer, and they manipulate what they say to you. I don't know, but it could also be something good, because there are some some activities that are routinary that maybe a machine can do.
Hello. I have two questions. The first one is, can you give us some insight about the research process behind the creation of an article? Like, where do you start? How does it work? And my second one is, how do you manage, and what's your opinion about the power of being able to manipulate an entire portion of work by giving a news? And I mean, it's more a problem in the society or a problem in morality in the journalism industry?
The creation of an article, I mean, this is a very huge topic. I mean, of course, it's our job is to investigate and to build an article. Generally, we listen to opposite opinions to balance also. The process of birth of an article, it's very. It's very different. I mean, it depends. Again, it depends on the issue. Sometimes it's a news happening. I don't know. Maybe it's some pro-Palestinian, protests going out, and so you just go and see it and speak with people, and then speak to others, and it's a chronicle in that case. Sometimes if it's an investigation, again, you know, speak with several sources that are specialized in what you are investigating. The Perte Iranian, I mean, labor forces, soldiers, I don't know, some health worker, politicians. And then you put everything together and with data, of course, with data too, and you build up your article. Yeah. No, I do my job. I mean, my boss doesn't tell me who to speak to. No. Oh.
Hello, my name is Gabriella. Thank you for your speech. And considering what happened in the US after the murder of Charlie Kirk, so for example, the fact that some media channels supported the Republicans' campaign, do you think that this climate of polarization, political polarization, is already present in Europe or it will be present in Europe soon? Thank you.
This is a question for a political analyst. But it's not present yet. That's something. And we are we are a different society in Europe, I would say, from US. Often in social media, they tend to say the West. And I think it's a very ambiguous word because they have different law, a different system. Yes, they influence us a lot, but because they influence us, they influence all the world. They're a very big empire and they are a big power, and I mean their influence is out of question. But I'm not sure. We have also other anticorpus here.
Hello, my name is Giulio, and I have lots of friends in Belgrade, unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
So I wanted to ask you if you can tell us more about Serbia, about this situation, because I know some details, but I don't know more. Thank you.
Yeah, well, yeah, you're all asking me very, very complex questions. It's, I mean, it's very hard to reply in very shortly. I still see a lot of hands. I mean, I just spoke about Serbia because there is a lot right now going on around. I mean, that we have these big two wars, Ukraine and Gaza, and I was wondering if you are informed because these are outstanding protests. I mean, it's almost 1 year that people are going out on the streets in Serbia and they're protesting. And Serbia, it's a country very near, of course, the European Union. It's a candidate to enter in the European Union, even if the process is it's very slow. And it's a very European society too, especially in the big cities. And and they're claiming, I mean, the protests, I mean, they have a lot of causes, maybe some of them that we will know in the future. As for one of the things that I'm thinking about it recently is if people is also angry because there is a big problem with inflation in Serbia and prices are rising and, people are having a worst time to, and there are problems with climate change. There are a lot of problems. There, of course, a big problem with corruption. I mean, it's in a lot of reports. So I wondered if you were informed a little bit because Italy, it's very near the Balkan. It's one of the European countries that in the past more follow with the situation in the Balkans. But today, I don't know what Italian media are exactly, writing about Serbia. But of course, it's harder to speak about other countries. Actually, it's not only Serbia. Before I did Zimbabwe again, but no, I show you that there was another story on Georgia. Also, Georgia, this huge protest, pro-European protest, and they were not very, we didn't have a lot of place to, we're not covering them very well.
Okay, hello. My name is Aurora and I'm Italian. I wanted to ask you, like, what's your perception about social media and like a little bit related to the question that the other girl asked. Like, do you think that one-sided blogs, for example, are a danger to your attempt to communicate and share what actually happens all over the world, and especially since people are always very biased and not informed enough to understand what is true and what is not?
I think it's not social media that are dangerous. I think that it's dangerous that people do not anymore understand how to inform themselves, because that's a key to participate to the society, participate to democracy. It's not social media, it's how we use them. Of course, institutions should be there to regulate them. That's a big problem, because, of course, if the people who owns this social media try to manipulate, I expect, our institution to protect the society. I think we still have work to do, of course, but it's not. It's not it's not technology. It's stupid to be scared about, technology. It's just how we use it. And yeah, we should have, as a society, we should claim again that our institution also protect us, because individually we cannot do. If they're manipulating the algorithm, it's not you or me that can fix it. It's, an institution, an European or an Italian or whatever institution. Yep.
So, hello, I'm Usama from Casablanca, Morocco, and I have a question. Most of the time, when we look at the articles in the Western media generally, and especially in the Anglophone media, we see that there is always a language game, a game of words. For example, if you are describing a military action that is happening in Ukraine, they are always using strong words such as invasion and war crimes. But when describing what is happening in Gaza, sometimes they don't even mention who is the aggressor. Like, there is a bombing in Lebanon, there is a bombing in Gaza, there is a bombing in Khan Yunis. So
not in my medias.
Sorry?
Not in my medias. We speak about invasion, and we even use the word genocide for Palestine and in Gaza. And as a former student of international law, I know that we can use that word only if a court says so. But still, since the situation is so extreme, it was so extreme in Israel, in my media, they use that word. They use genocide. They say that Israel committed the genocide. Spanish politicians also use the word genocide openly. So again, it depends on the media. I know that a lot of you read news in English. It's normal, but sometimes are not always sometimes are not doing. How I can say this softly? There are a lot of good journalists that don't write in English. Okay. So if you speak or can read another language, when you are interested in something, try to read it also in another language. Try to find another media. Yeah, I heard you, but just I want to I want to stress this. I think that Spanish-speaking media do a very good job, and French-speaking media do a very good job, and sometimes they do let me, they are recording this, right? Well, they do a very good job. So I think you should read in French, in Spanish, if you can, in other language, because it will help you understand better. Finished?
Okay, that one was the last question. I let this session of Q&A last longer because I saw that you were really engaging in questions. I didn't want to ruin the moment. So according with the time schedule, now the session is over, but I leave some closing remark in order to deliver to the students. If you have some closing remarks, the floor is yours.
I think maybe this student over there that was raising a hand, maybe he can have, no, they're not interested. Okay.
We will make an exception, but this is really the last one. Okay.
Hey, thank you. My name is Leonardo. Sorry, guys, for this. And I was curious in the fact that you said that social media itself is not the main problem, but rather how do people inform themselves. And considering that very often we have to deal with media that are either filtered or manipulated by political parties or lobbies, which media would you suggest as always reliable, or at least at international level? And also, how would you suggest, especially younger generations, to inform themselves in a proper way then? Thank you.
Maybe it helps with the final remarks, what you just asked. I would advise you to read, I mean, traditional media are still the best media, okay? The big names are still the ones, because it's also it's also about resources. And traditional media still put resources in doing good reporting. And so I would trust, especially in press, but not only, also in TV. I would advise you to read the big ones also. And what was the second question? Read more than one newspaper. Listen to more than radio station. Look at more than one TV if you're interested. If you want to be a diplomat, you will have to do it. If you want to be a journalist, more. And yes, and collect as much information you can from different sources. Study the source, and get used to it after that. It's not something that you have to do every day, but be able to recognize a source is important for the reliability of what you're reading. So yeah, I would say that's the issue. I have not much to say to close. Just thank you. I'm happy that you ask a lot of questions, and that's it.